Up to those who it should be good morning, who might be out in the cloud, or good afternoon. Thank you, Roshi, for the invitation to speak, as well as the invitation to come and be part of the Sangha. I deeply appreciate it. And thank you to the community that has welcomed me back so generously and so warmly. I appreciate it and really treasure the opportunity to practice with you. And thank you to everyone for co-creating this evening, whether we're here in person or via Zoom. And before I begin, I just want to take a moment to say that I just find Upaya such an incredible jewel. So generous with the offerings, so many incredible offerings that come through this practice center. And I just want to remind people that, we'll be talking a little bit about Dharma, but support is always welcome and always needed. So I hope that everyone will give and give generously in return for what is given so generously from Upaya. How will we live our lives? This is a very big question. It's a very serious question. And my guess is because you are spending time, part of your precious life, to be here, to connect here, that this is a question that is on your minds and hearts as well. Perhaps especially during these times that are more than a little challenging, right? How do I want to live my life? Dogen, the founder of our Zen tradition, lived from 1200 to about 1252 in Japan, medieval Japan. And it was a time of great tumult. The aristocracy was waning. They had been in power for a long time. They were on the decline, and a new class of samurai were on the ascendancy. And the passing of the two caused a lot of social unrest and switching of roles. The aristocracy, as a result of being on the descendancy and somewhat waning, was eager to hold on to any vestige of power that they could. And they were occupied with all kinds of pursuits, very little of which had to do with thinking about other people. Now, the samurai, the warriors, the way of the warrior, they were on the rise. They were very much occupied with thoughts of how to make money, scheming. And of course, the violent factor behind the samurai that we see so much in movies was one where there was a great amount of, not a great amount of regard for human life. This situation was also complicated by the state of the religious organizations at the time, including Buddhism. Dogen felt that the Buddhism that was present at this time in his early career and beyond was actually one which was also participating in a lot of corruption. The turning upside down of the social order that had existed before caused a lot of monasteries, and because of the power of the samurai, to behave in ways that are kind of shocking. So it was not unusual that the certain Buddhist sects actually took up arms to protect the property of the samurai. In the background of all of this was the sense, and particularly from a Buddhist perspective, that the age of degeneration had arrived, the third of three ages. And this was kind of reinforced in people's minds because this was also a time of famine and earthquakes and fires. So, as you can surmise, this was a challenging time in which Dogen lived, a challenging time for the practitioners. One where there was great wealth disparity, where there was a lot of greed, inaction, and a lot of corruption. And then there's this whole thing going on with the earth fires and the famines. It feels kind of familiar, doesn't it? Perhaps we have a little bit more knowledge as to why some of these things happen, but it seems like I can certainly resonate with what Dogen and the people of the time might have felt. In 1243, Dogen experienced a particularly intense situation where he had to leave the temple that he was in Kyoto, and move to his temple, the last one that we all know of, Eiheiji. And there's some indication, some evidence that perhaps he was forced to leave this temple, Kyosho, and that actually the pressure, the hostility was coming from another Buddhist sect, the Tendai, who were dominant at the time. So quite a situation, quite a background that he was practicing in and leading a Sangha in, and quite a significant event. Imagine if one day Roshi had to figure out how to get everybody out of Upaya, right? It'd be a very big effort, and it wouldn't feel particularly good. So, as I said, there is some evidence that this was, not only was the situation, did it have hostility and a certain amount of threat, but there is also some evidence that perhaps Dogen wrote one particular fascicle in response to what was going on in his life and the life of his Sangha. And that is the fascicle that I want to talk about tonight. And it is called Bodhisatta Shishobo. If this is true, and it is hard to gather accurately all the historical record on this, if it is true, I think a lot about how it must have been for Dogen to be under these circumstances of threat, to be forced to leave a temple, and how he must have felt about how to practice himself under those circumstances, and also how to help his Sangha practice under rather rough circumstances. And I also think about, given how incredibly wise and learned he was, how really brilliant he was, and in what command he was of such an immense body of Dharma, how it was that he chose what he wanted to talk about from all of the myriad sutras and the endless lists that are extant in Buddhism. So I take very seriously the items that he selected to both shore up his own practice as well as to articulate to his Sangha as the important things to get them all through this difficult experience. So you're all on the edge of your seat. I know. What are they? I'm here to tell you. So the four guidelines, these are called the four guidances, four bodhisattva methods of guidance. And a bodhisattva, of course, as we know, is somebody who chooses to delay on their own enlightenment, on their own complete transformation of suffering, on their own crossing over to the other shore, to wait for everybody to be in a position to do so, so that we cross over together. We cross over together. And that is the difference between the bodhisattva model and the arhat model. So the four elements that Dogen chose to reflect on and to write about are dana, kind speech, beneficial action, and identity action. Dale Wright has written a beautiful book on the paramitas. And in this, the introduction to that book, he not only also raises the question, how do I want to live? How do we want to live? But he goes on to expound about all of the paramitas, which are aspirational ways that we want to embody as bodhisattvas to help shape our hearts and our minds to that of a Buddha, right? So Dogen chose the first of the paramitas, which is dana, which is often translated as generosity. The thing that is so radical about the concept of dana from the generosity as we typically know it is that we think of generosity in a very transactional way. I give something to you, right? And usually it's I give something to you, right? But the way that dana is perceived and embodied in the Buddhist, from the Buddhist perspective, is in a very lateral circle. There's the gift, there's the giver, the receiver. Everyone is equal, everyone is on a par, and it's a circle. And none of it can happen without each of the three things. And so there's an incredible sense of equality in the process of dana, of this type of generosity. And there's an incredible sense of generosity, of seeing each other as equal. There are various ways in which we embody dana. One way is to actually give material things, right? To give money to a center that you have an affinity with. To give food to people who need it. But it can also move into another realm where we give support. We just look at somebody and we give them affirmation. I see you. I recognize you for your humanity, right? Dana has an incredible, is backlit in with a lot of energy, the energy of compassion. I see you. I see you, right? We all know how good that feels to really be seen, and what a shortage of that sort of activity happens in the world lives often. So this dana is imbued with a spirit of tenderness and of connection. We're all connected. We're all moving in this circle. But we also give other things that are cherished. We give the gift of fearlessness. And I think that this is a good one to remember at this particular time, particularly given events of the last few weeks that have probably troubled some of our hearts and minds, right? And it doesn't mean, fearlessness does not mean that we are unafraid, but it means that despite our fear, we continue to move forward and act and live in a way that isn't upright and in alignment with what we believe. And very, very, maybe as a background to that type of fearlessness, an aspect of all of this is and what we're aided by is having don't know mind. And a number of Roshi's recent newsletters have pointed to the importance of this during times like this that are very difficult, right? Our bodies clench in fear. Certain things have happened. Oh my goodness, really? What is the consequence of that? Are we going to be at a civil war? What the heck is going to happen? There's a lot of uncertainty in one of the parties. Our bodies feel it, right? And so having this don't know mind and entering into this space allows us the capacity to kind of relax a little bit, but to also entertain other possibilities than what our heart minds that are afraid immediately go to. Catastrophic thinking, right? I drove from San Francisco, which is a little over 1,100 miles, to arrive here, and there was lots of time to listen to many things. Wonderful podcast from Upaya, some great music, and also the news, right? And on one of the programs that I was listening to, there was an academician and a historian by the name of Timothy Snyder, who many of you are familiar with. I'm seeing shaking heads. And he is a person who is an expert in watching and dissecting and studying what happens when there is a change from a democracy to an authoritarian dictator state, right? And I was so struck by one of the things that he said, which was, yes, dictators and authoritarians come in and they take a lot of power. But what is also at work, and where they get a lot of the power that they don't ask for, is willingly from the people who are so afraid. So to hold a mind of don't know, to help to offset our fears that are certainly legitimate, but to allow for other possibilities, and to hold ourselves in a state where out of our panic, we give too much away. We already think it's a foregone conclusion. As long as there is breath, I do believe there is possibility, right? Look at France. So that is this this spirit of Dana. And then the next one that Dogen talks about, before I go on to that, I do want to read you directly from this. Buddha said, when a person who practices goes to an assembly or to a gathering, people take notice. You should know that the mind of such a person communicates subtly with others. Therefore, given even a phrase or verse of the truth, it will be a wholesome seed for this lifetime and other lifetimes to bring the spirit of generosity. And he ends his section on Dana by saying, the mind of a sentient being is difficult to change. Really? You should keep on changing the minds of sentient beings from the first moment that they have one particle to the moment that they attain the way. This should be started by giving. For this reason, giving is the first of the 6 paramitas. So the next one is kind speech. And I love what Thich Nhat Hanh has to say about this. He says, aware of the suffering caused by unmindful speech and the inability to listen to others, I am committed to cultivating loving speech and deep listening. So there's a mutuality already to what speech is. It is not just the talking, it is also the listening, right? Again, like that circle of Dharma, we're entering into a connection with people with kind speech. And speech, I think, is made manifest in any number of ways. We tend to think of it as just what it is that comes out of our mouths that has some value. You're listening to me now. But there's also the speech of the mind. And that's where I think the fear that we were just talking about and the fearlessness resides. So we have to pay much attention to the speech of the mind, the speech of the mouth and words, and then the speech of our body, of our actions. And we want those to be in alignment. I have a student who is queer, non-binary, and works in a state office, a county office, dealing with the health of an area in Oregon. And it's a pretty conservative area, and they are perceived in uneven ways, shall we say. And what I love about Avery's practice, who is a very, very embodied person, is that there is a commissioner who, whenever Avery starts a meeting, wants to start with just a little, very discreet mindfulness. And the commissioner just gets up and walks out of the room. And time after time, Avery keeps their voice even, keeps the tones kind, and chooses to sit next to the person, the commissioner, with a body that just is saying as much love as they possibly can, subtly communicating, right? And the way that they thank the commissioner is with this, the hand over the heart and a hand extended. So there are many ways in which we can manifest this speech. Dogen says, you should be willing to practice it for this entire present life. Do not give up. World after world, life after life. Kind speech is the basis for reconciling rulers and subduing enemies. Those who hear kind speech from you have a delighted expression and a joyful mind. Well, maybe it takes some a little longer than others. Those who hear your kind speech will be deeply touched, and they will never forget it. The importance of speech, the awareness in our lineage, in our Buddhist practice of how much harm can be done by speech is easily apparent by virtue of how much time we train ourselves and how many teachings there are on speech, be it the one of the Eightfold Path, right speech, to 3 or so of our precepts, to not lie, right? To not harbor anger, to not slander. Speech is very, very tricky. And it can be utterly delicious to engage in speech that is not skillful, that is not kind. Yeah, it is. There was a rumor going around San Francisco's Zen Center for a while that it actually is okay because it builds community. No, no, that is not right. So to be very mindful of our kind speech, to be aware, and I don't think that it takes much imagination for any of us to remember what it felt like when somebody really gave us kind speech, or the impact that we had on somebody else when we gave them the gift of kind speech, right? So this is the second of his methods for guidance. The third is beneficial action. Beneficial action is skillfully to benefit all classes of sentient beings, all classes, sentient, insentient, human, non-human, and to help them by using skillful means. Beneficial action is an act of oneness. benefiting self and others together. So these cluster of four guiding methods that Dogen is writing about are also called the embracing dharmas. And you can start to get a flavor, the feel, that in each one of them, it's connecting with another person, right? Or another being, right? There's a sense of generosity. And when I think of two people embracing, it's like one person, another person, not one, not two, coming together, right? This beautiful embrace. So I think a lot of the energy behind all of these four methods is, again, just to remind us and to give us a path to experience and enter into oneness of no separate self, of interbeing. I have a student who works at the public health department in San Francisco. And if any of you know the San Francisco area and the area down by the city hall, I'm editing myself in terms of commenting on that building. It's a hell realm, right? It's you take the BART, you try and find and this is where people, everyone who's disenfranchised, either by way of money, by way of neurodivergence, by way of color, by way of immigration status, they all are living in this hell realm, right? And so on the way to her job every day, Hannah kind of encounters and meets a lot of homeless people. And one day she saw a woman just kind of struggling in a doorway, trying to put on her shoe. And Hannah went up to her and, "Can I help you?" and helped her put on her shoe. And the woman was so touched. It was a simple act, but she was so touched to actually be met with this sense of equality, the sense of having been seen. You can imagine that does not happen very often for people that are unhoused, right? And the woman said to her, with great exuberance, "Thank you, and have a great day." And Hannah said, just felt terrible. It's like, I'm going to say back to you, "Have a great day." What will that look like, right? Beneficial action. And this is at the core of a lot of our practice. And I think that this is also something that Roshi pointed out in a recent newsletter. But a great master, human, at the end of his life was asked, "Master, what is the teaching of a lifetime?" To which he replied, "An appropriate response, a beneficial act," right? So when we enter practice, when we enter into this bodhisattva way, the question is never so much about why. The question is really how. How do I respond? Life is going to unfold. Life is unfolding. The question is, how do we respond to it, collectively and individually? So this last guidance from Dogen is called identity action, and it means non-difference. It is non-difference from self, non-difference from others. When we know identity action, other and self are one. Hozan Alan Senaki, who I think has actually spoken here about the embracing dharmas quite a number of years ago, makes the point that, in a certain way, this is about reinventing ourselves, to put ourselves in the way of identifying with others. Sometimes this can be a challenge. Let's see. Who might be people out there right now that we would have a hard time identifying with, right? So to stretch our minds and our hearts to find this sense of connection with all beings, people that we quote unquote like, people that we don't like, people who challenge us. And once again, behind this particular guidance is compassion. the more we have compassion for people, the more that we understand that everybody faces fears and challenges and difficulties, the more our hearts and minds can soften, and we can actually embody compassionate availability. And I think that that's exactly the sort of action that helps to break down these feelings of distance, almost unmitigatable distance that can arise during these times. With gentle expression, practice identity action for all people. And he ends by saying, each of these four methods of guidance includes the other four, which you can see, right? Kind speech could easily come into beneficial action. Dana, generosity, comes into identity action. I think that for myself, in terms of my practice during this time, I feel that identity action is really at the crux of it. When there is so much of a sense of divisiveness, when it's really hard to hear, other people sometimes, hard to listen to them actually, but hard to hear what they're saying. It is really important for me to dive down deeper, to really sink into this identity action. And I think one of the things that kind of really opened up this practice for me, that comes to my aid even now, is I remember when my younger sister was dying of cancer, probably about 20 years ago. And at that time, I was just so filled with grief and disoriented in my own life at the prospect of losing this beloved person, that I did a lot of weird things. And I did a lot of things that were not particularly mindful, including things like, speeding, running red lights, going out of turn at a four-way stop, which I did, all of those, more than once. And it was just a very, very heartbreaking time. And so now when I'm at a four-way stop and someone goes out of turn, I think, just like me, maybe they too have a family member they're rushing to be at their chemo appointment with. Maybe too, they just got some bad health news, just like me, just like me. There's a way in which that very much takes down the I to more of a us type of experience. Some lessons in the Dharma are hard learned, that's for sure. So, we return to this question of how do we want to live? How will we live? We are all here now, in this very moment, in the heart of the Bodhisattva way, vowing to be of service, vowing to continue to help people, vowing to hold ourselves in an upright, aligned fashion. Shantideva, who wrote an 8th century Indian saint, wrote The Way of the Bodhisattva, says the way of the Bodhisattva is long, many kalpas. And a kalpa, of course, is an incalculable amount of time. So we must be very patient. But I think it's long, not just because there are many people and not everybody is at the same stage, but it's also long because of our own practices. We need to continue to grow and to deepen and to ripen in order to have more and more capacity to take on what is offered to us as life continues to unfold in good circumstances and in difficult circumstances. And this is precisely the time for us to take refuge in our practice and to deepen our practice. I want to find a quote, if I can remember where I put it. I have no idea when Roshi said this, but it was on Google, so it must be true. Catastrophe is the essence of spiritual practice. My practice does not grow when everything is nice and comfy, right? My practice grows when my sister is dying of cancer. My practice grows when I have to find the way to connect and identify with people who I actually feel are threatening me and the people I love and our world in very genuine, serious ways. There's no point or time for dispensation, right? It's like, let me get through this year and then I'll get back to identity action. We are not let off the hook like that. It is every moment, every breath, finding identity action, embodying beneficial action, using kind speech, and locating ourselves in this circle of generosity, of Dharma. Uh, Time check, was this, it's 6:20? Are there a few more minutes? I have 7 minutes. Thank you very much, Kodo. I love your specificity. So these are the times when we get to really lean. Our edges are revealed, our resistance is revealed, our belief is revealed, our faith is revealed. These are the times to really lean into all of these edges. And it's also the time to take refuge in our practice, to take refuge in the Dharma. I have lived long enough to go through many, many situations where I have been held by the Dharma, by the practice, by the four methods of guidance. Long enough and more than one occasion so that I have a great faith in them. I actually, I am not a scholar of Dogen. And so with all apologies to those who are, but I am a very, very dedicated student. Here is a guy who was orphaned at an early age in life, who lived in this type of environment articulated to all of you, who, had to leave a temple that he had built. And he was so, so dedicated. He was so dedicated. And he was, I think, not only a teacher, I think he was an ardent practitioner. I think he practiced, as we say, like his hair was on fire. And he left us this incredible record of writings, between the extensive record as well as the Shobo Genzo, which is where this fascicle comes from, trying to share with us his great generosity, his great passion for this practice, trying to share with us things that could be helpful. Sometimes writing from the relative world, very often writing from the ineffable world, the absolute world, which is hard to articulate. I have great respect and great fondness for him. So here we are. What we do with our practice, how we live, it really matters. It really matters. In the fascicle on continuous practice, Dogen writes, the power of this continuous practice confirms you as well as others. It means your practice affects the entire earth and the entire sky in the 10 directions. Continuous practice is practice that actualizes itself. Continuous practice that actualizes itself is no other than you and your continuous practice right now. Right now. So when Dogen tells me that my practice, whatever shape it might be in on any particular day, affects the entire world, when he offers me the guidance of dana, kind speech, beneficial action, identity action, I take him quite seriously. That these are not only ways that I will get through difficult times, but these are also ways that will help me get through difficult times. What we do matters, big or small. How we live matters. It affects everything. So I want to end by sharing two things. The first is a quote from the Talmud, because sometimes this can all feel overwhelming, not just Dogen's advice and how to do it, but even just how to kind of deal with news cycles and events of the day. And the quote that I want to share is, "Do not be daunted by the enormity of the world's grief. Do justly now. Love mercy now. Walk humbly now. You are not obligated to complete the work, but neither are you free to abandon it." So I'm going to close with a poem because I feel particularly that the events of the last week and of these times have been anything but peaceful. And I'd like to invite a prayer of peace into our hearts and our minds at this point. For many years, I kind of rebelled against prayer, my early Buddhist practice being a recovering Catholic. But Pema Chodron talked about how we're really just setting our intention. When we pray, we're setting our intention. We're not asking for some sort of a deity to wave a magic wand and make things better. We're just, filling our hearts and minds with the sincere hope. And Dido Laurie, in his book on the precepts, says something very, very significant about the energy of all of this. He says that when we begin to vow, when we intend something, we set in motion the karma of that intention. Things actually start to line up in a certain way. What was your intention to get you here tonight? Your intention, the karma of it lined up, and here we all are. And the other reason why I wanted to offer this is because, going back to Dana, Hozan Sanaki says that part of Dana is that we give inner peace to ourselves. So please feel free to just relax, to close your eyes, to let this wash over you. And we're switching from Dogen as a teacher to Ellen Bass as a teacher. Pray for peace. Pray to whomever you kneel down to. Jesus nailed to his wooden or plastic cross, his suffering face bent to kiss you. Buddha, still under the bow tree in scorching heat. Adonai, Allah, raise your arms to Mary that she may lay her palm on our brows. To Shekinah, Queen of heaven and earth, to Ayana in her striped descent. Then pray to the bus driver who takes you to work. On the bus, pray for everyone riding that bus, for everyone riding buses all over the world. Drop some silver and pray. Waiting in line for the movies, for the ATM, your latte and croissant, offer your plea. Make your eating and drinking a supplication. Make your slicing of carrots a holy act. Each translucent layer of onion a deeper prayer. To hawk or wolf or the great whale, pray. Bow down to terriers and shepherds and Siamese cats, fields of artichokes and elegant strawberries. Make the brushing of your hair a prayer, every strand its own voice, singing in the choir on your head. As you wash your face, the water, slipping through your fingers, a prayer. Water, softest thing on earth, gentleness that wears away rock. Making love, of course, is already prayer. Skin and open mouths, worshiping that skin, the fragile cases we are poured into. If you are hungry, pray. If you are tired, pray to Gandhi and Dorothy Day, Shakespeare, Sappho, Sojourner Truth. When you walk to your car, to the mailbox, to the video store, let each step be a prayer that we all keep our legs, that we do not blow off anyone else's legs or crush their skulls. And if you are riding on a bicycle or a skateboard or in a wheelchair, each revolution of the wheels, a prayer as the earth revolves. Less harm, less harm, less harm. And as you work, typing with a new manicure, a tiny palm tree painted on one pearlescent nail, or delivering soda or drawing good blood into rubber-capped vials, writing on a blackboard with yellow chalk, twirling pizzas. With each breath in, take in the faith of those who have believed when belief seemed foolish, who persevered. With each breath out, cherish. Pull weeds for peace, turn over in your sleep for peace. Feed the birds, each tiny seed that spills onto the earth, another second of peace. Wash your dishes, call your mother, drink wine. Shovel leaves or snow or trash from your sidewalk. Make a path. Fold a photo of a dead child around your Visa card. Scoop your holy water from the gutter. Gnaw your crust. Mumble along like a crazy person, stumbling your prayer through the streets. May I know peace. May you know peace. May all beings know peace. Thank you for your kind attention.